It was close to midnight when I realized that working the night shift at KFC was much more than just boring, it was dangerous. I had been there for only 3 weeks, covering overnight cleaning and maintenance shifts. The store was located on the edge of town, far from the bright streets and busy neighborhoods. During the day, the place was packed with families, laughter, and the greasy smell of fried chicken. But at night, once the last customer left and the lights dimmed, the restaurant transformed into something else, something unsettling. The first night I worked alone, I thought the silence would be the hardest part. The hum of the refrigerators, the faint buzz of the overhead lights, and the occasional car passing outside. But silence wasn't the problem. It was the feeling of being watched, even when I was the only one inside. My manager, Dale, had brushed it off when I mentioned it. "Man, don't worry. You'll get used to the night shift. Place creaks a little, that's all. Buildings settle, pipes groan. Nothing to it." But he had said it too quickly, too dismissively, as if he didn't want to discuss it further. The second week, things started small. While mopping near the counter, I swore I heard someone walking in the dining area, shoes scuffing softly against the tile. I froze, gripping the mop handle tightly, and glanced up. The chairs were stacked, the tables spotless, and the front doors were locked. No one was there. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, just nerves, maybe echoes bouncing from the kitchen. But then a ketchup packet rolled across the floor, slowly, smoothly, as if pushed by an invisible hand. I didn't even want to pick it up. By the third week, the strange noises had grown worse. I'd hear the fryer baskets clanging in the kitchen when I wasn't near them. A faint tapping came from the freezer door, like knuckles rapping against the metal. And sometimes faint laughter, high-pitched, childlike. I avoided the freezer whenever I could. The air inside was biting, colder than it should have been, and the frost on the walls always seemed thicker than normal. I swear I saw shapes in it once, like faces pressing outward from beneath the ice. Still, I needed the job. I told myself I was overreacting. That was until one night, when I stayed a little later than usual. It was 2:47 a.m. I was scrubbing the fryer station, headphones in, trying to drown out the eerie quiet. That's when I felt it, a blast of cold air against my neck, colder than the air conditioning, sharp enough to make me shiver. I pulled my earbuds out, spun around, and froze. The freezer door was wide open. I hadn't gone near it. I hadn't touched it. And yet there it was, yawning open like a black mouth. Cold vapor spilled out and crawled across the tiles like fog. I stood there, heart pounding in my ears, waiting for something to happen, for someone to step out. But there was nothing, only the low hum of the cooling system. I told myself to be brave, to shut it before it wasted more energy. But the moment I stepped closer, I heard it, a whisper, so faint I thought I imagined it. "Oh, come in." I stumbled back, shaking my head. No, I didn't hear that. It wasn't real. But when I blinked, I saw movement, just for a second. A pale hand, pressing against the inside of the door, before vanishing back into the darkness. That was the night I started believing the rumors. I'd overheard 2 older workers once, whispering in the break room when they thought I wasn't listening, about how the old KFC manager years ago had been found dead inside the walk-in freezer, locked in overnight. By the time anyone found him, his body was stiff, curled up like a frozen statue. And they said he still wandered the restaurant at night. The next night I walked into the store with a strange heaviness in my chest. It felt like the air itself inside that KFC had grown thicker, heavier, and colder. My co-worker Lisa didn't show up this time. I texted her, but there was no response. Maybe she had finally quit. That left just me, locked in with the silence and that uneasy smell of old grease mixed with something faintly rotten. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was just tired. But as I checked the machines and cleaned up the front counter, I kept noticing little things that were off. The chairs weren't exactly where we had left them last night. A mop bucket was moved to the far corner when I knew I hadn't touched it. Small things, but enough to keep me unsettled. Around midnight, as I leaned against the counter, I heard it again, the faint tap, tap, tap. Not the fryer this time. It was coming from the walk-in freezer in the back. I froze, my heart hammering. The sound was rhythmic, deliberate, almost like knuckles rapping on metal. I took a deep breath, grabbed the flashlight from under the register, and forced myself to check. The hallway toward the freezer felt unnaturally long, the buzzing of the fluorescent lights echoing louder with every step. When I opened the heavy freezer door, the cold air hit me like a slap. I shone the light inside, scanning over stacked boxes of chicken and bags of fries. Nothing, just that biting cold. But as I turned to step out, I saw it, pressed faintly into the frost on the inside of the metal door. A handprint. Not mine, too large, the fingers unnaturally long. I slammed the door shut, stumbling back into the hallway, gasping for breath. The rest of the shift was a blur of panic. I forced myself to keep busy, scrubbing counters, stacking boxes, anything to keep from thinking about what I had seen. But every time I walked past the freezer, I felt the weight of something standing just beyond the steel door, waiting. At 3 a.m., when exhaustion finally dragged me into the employee chair behind the counter, I thought I heard breathing. Not mine, heavy, wet from the kitchen. I lifted my head, every nerve in my body screaming. The fryer station was dark, shadows stretching across the tiled floor. But in the corner, near the back door, I swear I saw it, something crouched low, like a person, only too thin, too elongated. Its head snapped up toward me, and two gleaming eyes reflected the emergency light above the exit sign. I bolted upright, knocking over the chair. But when I blinked, it was gone. The rest of the night dragged on in torment. Every noise became unbearable, every creak of the pipes, every hiss of the fryer oil, every shifting shadow in the glass windows. By the time the sun finally rose, I felt half-crazed. The handprint was still there when I checked, real, frozen into the metal. And worse, when the morning crew came in and I finally stumbled out into the daylight, I noticed something smeared faintly across the back door. At first I thought it was grease. But no, grease doesn't smear in thick, dark streaks. It looked like dried blood. And in the middle of it, carved into the paint, was a single word: stay. The freezer door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the hollow room. And in that instant, my flashlight flickered and went out. I froze, my heart hammering inside my chest. The temperature felt colder than usual, almost biting, like it was seeping into my bones. For a moment I thought it was just my nerves, but then I heard it again, slow, deliberate breathing that didn't belong to me. I fumbled to smack the flashlight, and the beam sputtered back to life. The pale light skimmed across stacked boxes of frozen chicken, the metallic racks, and a trail of frost clinging to the ground. Nothing unusual, except for the shadow I caught at the corner of my vision. It wasn't shaped like a person, not exactly. It stretched unnaturally tall against the freezer wall, flickering even though there was no moving light source to cast it. I stepped back, pressing against the cold steel shelves. The shadow didn't vanish. Instead, it elongated, moving along the wall as if it were crawling toward me. My breath clouded in front of me. I whispered, "Who's there?" even though I already knew there wouldn't be an answer. The breathing grew louder. It wasn't steady like a human's. It rasped, broken and labored, as though lungs were filled with ice. My flashlight beam shook as I raised it higher, and for a split second I saw two eyes reflecting the light. They weren't human. They glistened, black and wet, embedded in the darkness itself. I bolted for the door, slamming my hand against the latch. It didn't budge. I yanked again, panic rising. Behind me, boxes toppled as though something brushed past them. My scream came out raw, fogging the frozen air. Finally, the latch gave way, and I stumbled out into the prep area, slamming the heavy door shut. The sound stopped immediately. The freezer was silent again, like nothing had ever been inside. I staggered back, gripping the counter for support. My co-worker Sarah ran in from the front counter. "What happened?" "I heard you yelling." I opened my mouth, but the words stuck in my throat. If I told her what I saw, she'd think I lost my mind. "The door jammed," I muttered. I panicked. She eyed me carefully, unconvinced, but didn't push. Still, I noticed how her hands trembled as she adjusted her hairnet. Maybe she had her own suspicions. The rest of the night blurred with uneasy silence. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of the fryers, the creak of the air vents, the dripping faucet. And every few minutes, I thought I saw that same shifting shadow lingering, just outside the corner of my vision. By 2 a.m., the place was empty of customers, just me and Sarah. She leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. "You ever get the feeling this place is, I don't know, off?" she asked suddenly. I froze. "What do you mean?" "Like it's not just us here," she whispered. "Sometimes I hear someone calling my name when no one's around. And the freezer. I hate going in there. It feels wrong." Her words hit me like ice water. I wasn't imagining it. Whatever haunted this place, she felt it too. Before I could answer, a loud thud rattled the back door. The one that led to the dumpsters. Sarah jumped. "Was that—" I grabbed the broom like it was a weapon and crept toward the door. Another thud came, louder this time, as though something massive was slamming against the metal from outside. Then silence. I pressed my ear against the door, listening. Nothing. Slowly, I slid the bolt and opened it a crack. Cold night air rushed in, along with the sour stench of old grease and garbage. The alley stretched out, dim under the single flickering light. Nothing moved. But the dumpsters. Their lids were wide open, and the bags of trash we'd thrown earlier were scattered across the ground. Torn open, bones, wrappers, and chicken skin littered the pavement. Something had been digging through them. I shut the door fast and locked it. Sarah stared at me with wide eyes. "What was it?" I shook my head. "Nothing. Just raccoons." But deep down, I knew raccoons didn't breathe like that. They didn't leave shadows that moved on their own. And they definitely didn't stare back with black, soulless eyes. We agreed silently not to check again. The rest of the shift dragged like a nightmare you can't wake from. The lights flickered every 20 minutes. The fryer timer beeped even when it wasn't set. And once, just once, I heard someone whisper my name from the freezer. Soft, almost mocking. When dawn finally broke, we left together. I swore I saw the freezer door swing open on its own as we stepped outside. I didn't look back, but I knew, without a doubt, something inside that KFC wasn't human. And it wasn't done with me yet. I don't remember falling asleep. All I remember is jerking awake to the sound of pounding. Not the normal creaks of the old building, not the hum of the fryers. This was deliberate. Hard, angry thuds against the freezer door. I sat up from the staff bench in the back room, heart hammering. The pounding grew louder. Boom, boom, boom. And then silence. I forced myself to stand. My legs trembled. The hallway light flickered above me, casting long shadows. Slowly, I made my way toward the freezer. Each step felt like I was walking into my own grave. The door stood closed, sealed by the metal latch. Frost lined its edges, but what made my blood run cold was the handle. It was moving, slowly, as if something inside was testing it, waiting for me to open it. "No," I whispered to myself. "No, this isn't real." But then I heard it again, that same whisper I'd been hearing for nights now. Except this time, it was right on the other side of the door. Hungry. I staggered back, shaking my head. I should have run out the back. I should have called the cops. I should have done anything but what I did next. But fear, it doesn't make you logical. It makes you desperate. I grabbed the heavy broom from the supply closet and pushed the latch down. The freezer door swung open with a hiss of frost. And there it was. At first, I thought it was just a shadow stretching across the shelves. But then it moved. Long crooked limbs unfolded from the corner, scraping against the metal walls. Its skin was gray, half frozen, peeling like freezer-burned meat. The eyes glowed dull yellow, sunken deep into its skull. It stepped forward, and with each movement came a horrible sound, like ice cracking under pressure. The thing tilted its head at me, jaw unhinging far too wide. Rows of jagged teeth glistened with frost. I froze, couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. The lights above us buzzed and died, leaving only the faint glow of the creature's eyes. Then it lunged. I swung the broom as hard as I could, smashing it against its chest. The thing barely staggered. Instead, it let out a sound I will never forget, something between a shriek and the hiss of boiling oil. I bolted out of the freezer and slammed the door shut behind me, throwing the latch. The pounding started again instantly. The door shook violently, the hinges groaning. I ran toward the front of the restaurant, fumbling for my phone. No service, no signal. The pounding grew louder, closer. until I swore the freezer door would rip off its hinges. Suddenly, silence. I stood there, chest heaving, sweat dripping. For a second, I thought maybe it was over, that somehow the thing had disappeared. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, heavy. Except they weren't coming from the back. They were coming from the dining area. My stomach dropped. I turned my head slowly toward the counter. There, standing just beyond the fryers, was the creature. Somehow it had gotten out. It was taller than before, its limbs stretching unnaturally, as if feeding off the cold air of the restaurant. Its head tilted again, and I realized with horror it was wearing something. A KFC employee hat. My knees gave out. The creature leaned forward, whispering in that broken voice. Hungry? Always hungry? That's the last thing I remember before blacking out. I woke up to the morning manager shaking me violently. The sun was shining through the windows. Customers were already pulling up to the drive-thru. But the freezer door was gone, ripped clean off its hinges, lying twisted on the floor like a crumpled soda can. The shelves inside were empty. Every single piece of chicken, every bag of frozen food, gone. They thought I'd done it, that I'd lost my mind, trashed the place, and tried to cover it up. I was fired on the spot. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I saw as I walked out the front doors for the last time. Across the street, standing on the sidewalk in the morning light, was the creature, watching me, its yellow eyes unblinking. It raised one crooked hand and placed it over its mouth like a shush. And then, slowly, it stepped backward into the shadows of an alleyway, vanishing as if it had never been there at all. It's been weeks since then. I don't work night shifts anymore. I barely sleep, because every time I close my eyes I hear it. That same whisper crawling into my mind. Hungry. And sometimes in the dead of night, when I get up to grab a drink of water, I swear I see it, reflected in the glass of my kitchen window. Still watching. Still waiting. So if you ever find yourself stuck on a night shift at a fast food place, do yourself a favor. Don't ignore the strange sounds. Don't check the freezer. And above all, never ever stay past midnight, because once it knows you, it never leaves you alone.